That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about You Can't Stay Here, which I believe is the 22nd narrative feature directed by Todd Verow, which is opening exclusively at the IFC Center January 5th, 2024.
Do you know a Todd Verow film?
Well, yeah, I'm very familiar with his 1995 feature Frisk, which is based on a Dennis Cooper novel, also about gay serial killers, which, you know, that's considered a staple of not just 90s independent cinema, but the new queer cinema movement.
So You Can't Stay Here, set in the 1990s, follows a photographer who witnesses the homicide of a gay man in Central Park. When the police take some interest in the crime, a relationship develops between the photographer and the murderer. Okay. What's your pull quote?
Little care seems to have been taken in crafting the most basic yet imperative elements of cinematic storytelling in this cheapy underground queer psychological thriller from new queer cinema alum Todd Verow.
Mine. Quite simply the most poorly constructed film I've seen in years. I don't think I've seen something worse since we started reviewing films, for sure.
Which is really, it's really disappointing because I am a fan of Guillermo Diaz, and you know, Todd Verow's directed a lot of films, but I've only seen Frisk, and with the subject matter, I was excited. And I don't mind cheap underground B movies, but it just seems like this misses the mark in every possible regard. And I actually went back and looked at the introduction of Verow in the Publicist.
Like the press release.
The press release. Fiercely independent, Verow produces his films using whatever money he has. He was one of the first filmmakers to embrace video as cheap and easy means of production, famously declaring that film is dead way back in 1997, and goes on to list his influences like Andy Warhol. I think that's a statement that's setting you up to say this is supposed to be this way. But at the same time, somebody that's been making films, and he's also editor, cinematographer, clearly working with zero budget, I still feel like there's something that has to work, and none of this does.
The audio's bad. The cinematography's bad. Lighting, all that. The dialogue is poorly written. The acting from almost everyone it's not just subpar. It's like, there's a character named Pigeon Man who's credited as himself. So, I mean, not that the crazy Pigeon Man can't be a good actor, but in this movie he's not. It's kind of out of control how little care seems to have been taken because even in the making of this film.
If you're thinking about, you know, John Waters' films where he has these non-professional actors who might not be good but are also putting their heart and soul into it with these large swaths of dialogue.
Well, that's the care that's taken, and also there's a lot of charm surrounding it. This film, let's just tell the story. Guillermo Diaz plays this guy who initially we see is married to a woman and has a child. But one day, and we're telling it out of sequence, we don't learn these things chronologically, but his wife catches him one day, because every part of this movie is set during the day. His wife catches him one day having sex with a man. So we see that the marriage has dissolved, and it would seem like he's not even co-parenting, he just has visitation rights. So his family's been torn apart. But he's now able to live, I guess, his big gay life. And what does he choose to do? Cruise the woods for sex.
Central Park it's supposed to be.
He works as a photographer, and we see that he likes to go to these cruising spots and take photographs, which we did talk about that. But he ends up witnessing a murder, and I don't know if it's because of the film being so poorly constructed or if this is the actual story, but it's not quite clear what's in his head, what's actually happening.
I'm not sure what's just accidental and what's supposed to be ambiguous.
But it would seem that he's either being haunted or stalked by this killer who looks like a tall, sexy Bruce McCullough from Kids in the Hall.
Justin Ivan Brown playing Adam, who is in several of Verow's productions.
And a couple of things happen. One, Guillermo falls in love with this person who he meets out in the woods.
Hale, played by Becca Blackwell, who was also Diaz's co-star in Bros.
And when Guillermo gets, like when his family breaks apart, he ends up living with his mother, who's senile and homophobic. And we see that the killer is, again, I don't know if the killer's stalking him or haunting him, but the killer ends up at Guillermo's mom's house and either convinces Guillermo or actually kills the mother. Because we see the mother die and there's a funeral. And in the end, Guillermo has fallen in love with this person at the park and goes to the park again to go cruising, sees that his beloved is about to have sex with the killer. And the killer, the biggest symbol in the movie is poppers. And we see the killer uses these poppers and maybe mixes them with chloroform to disarm his victims. So Guillermo's beloved is passed out, about to be killed, and then we see Guillermo kill the killer. Then he takes the killer somehow from Central Park back to the killer's apartment. Don't know how he knew where the killer lived. Dismembers him, cleans up the scene, takes photographs of everything. The park, the apartment, uses the killer's blood to write on the floor of the apartment, "I killed them all." And then goes to like a gallery, like an art gallery, shows all these pictures that are highly incriminating. The gallery owner says, "Love it. Let's do a showing." The end. I mean, the final scene is Guillermo and his beloved going back to the cruising spot. The thing that's most unclear to me is if Guillermo's the actual killer or not.
It would suggest that I think by the end maybe he is, because we still see a phantom of the killer in the cruising area. And we're also forgetting that Rick is his character's name, works for a woman named Wren, who is
we need to talk about all of this.
A fashion photographer. And he adopts a pseudonym as the artist of these pictures at the gallery named Blood.
Which reminds me, I was getting Midnight Meat Train from this movie.
Well, yeah, with
the photography.
How the gallerist is acting about the photographs is very Brooke Shields.
And the killer is wearing this plastic raincoat, like trench coat that's sort of sheer. But I have so many notes. Let's just start with the opening is Guillermo reading some mythology to his child, Orpheus and Eurydice.
Which I believe is the key to the subtext of the film, because Orpheus, of course, has to go to Hades to rescue Eurydice, and he's allowed to do so, but with the stipulation that as they, leave Hades, he cannot look back at Eurydice, and he does, and therefore loses her forever. And of course, the notion of taking photographs of something is also constantly looking back, and a high degree of the men that he interacts with, which is just the same handful of people, there's always this passage about look me in the eye, look at me, so that you can be a part of me kind of vibe going on.
So if people don't know what a cruising spot is, they're places where people go looking for sex, and it's supposed to be discreet and anonymous, and usually like more secluded spots, typically not in bright daylight, but everything in this movie is shot like it's 3:00 in the afternoon.
Probably because that's the only time they had access to the park where they're shooting.
But Guillermo is out there taking photographs and he is not being discreet. It just doesn't make sense. I imagine someone like him at a real cruising spot would have been stoned or something. Like he would have been run out of Dodge. Also, these cruising spots, I mean, the one, which is the park or the woods, whatever it is, we only see like 3 guys.
There would be much. I mean, we have to remember this is also supposed to be 1990s New York City. We're in full-blown AIDS crisis.
First of all, nothing about this movie feels like the 90s as far as set design, because we don't see cars, we don't see technology of any sort, except the camera, which looks like the camera I'm filming on now. And like you just mentioned, we only get the mention of AIDS once. Guillermo's in a bathroom and someone has written like in nail polish on the wall, like do you have AIDS yet or something. Just the themes are missing. But like you said, So in the woods, there's this man who's like talking to pigeons and raccoons, and we kind of get a longish scene.
It's too long, yeah.
Well, this movie in general is too long.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be more than like 70 minutes, and it's 104 minutes, but I could see the charm. Like, I can see that it's mimicking like the video style of 90s gay films, and then I can see that it has this sort of like guerrilla style filmmaking of like a John Waters, but no charm, no care.
Or the cycle of Paul Morrissey films produced by Andy Warhol in the 70s, starring Joe D'Alessandro, like Flesh, Heat, and Trash. Like, I can tell that it wants to be that.
Well, then, thinking about Joe D'Alessandro, there is nothing sexy about this movie.
No.
This is a gay thriller, and there is nothing sexy. The way it's shot is so unappealing. Who wants to be sexy and nude in, like, broad daylight like that? There's no nudity. There's one man earlier in the film who's out running in the park and probably cruising, and I think he's like a rapper in real life.
Boy Radio. Yeah, that if anything, this film allowed me to discover this person whose track Electric Pussy I really like.
But we see him like half of his butt, and that's the most nudity we get. We don't get any, like, not that there needs to be nudity to be sexy, but there's nothing sexy about what you might call like a gay erotic thriller.
No, but there should be the heightened titillation that goes along with exploring these cruising areas during this time with this person is the energy that it should have.
Right. I mean, of course, I also kept thinking about Stranger by the Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Which this is not, like, anywhere near. But even the killer, who's a very handsome man, it's like, why doesn't, just the way that character's shot and handled, there's nothing seductive or alluring about him. Shouldn't that be his... I mean, if I were like a gay serial killer targeting gay men at cruising spots, wouldn't my superpower be that I'm alluring?
Wasn't there a joke about the Joel David Moore character in Grandma's Boy about being from the queer Matrix?
You know what? I actually wrote that down, that he looks like the gay Matrix. Okay, so the flashback of Guillermo getting caught by his wife is so funny because, first of all, that poor lady playing his wife looks so fragile.
Samantha.
And she walks in with a bag of groceries into the apartment, and Guillermo's in the kitchen naked with another man, and when he sees that she has caught him, he just freezes.
It's like
a possum.
She won't see me if I don't move. And all she does is put down this brown bag of groceries and leave, and that's all we get.
I have so many notes, and I didn't even capture a fifth of the dialogue that is so ridiculous. For example, that handsome black man in the beginning with the jockstrap, he is attracted to Guillermo and like approaches him for sex, and at one point tells him, "No camera, just eyes. Lose yourself in my eyes."
Yeah, here we get
Then we get Guillermo narrating much of the film, and that dialogue is of the quality of, like, if you asked me to write something, which is not good. It's bad.
It's bad, and it also the audio doesn't sound good on that either, and that should have been the most controlled environment with which to record that, and it all sounds so inauthentic.
There are no VFX, but we do get a lot of blood, and the blood looks like straight up Louisiana red hot sauce.
Or that crystal wing sauce.
Or ketchup. I mean, it looks so bad.
And we're also told that it's inspired by true events. There's a point where two of the men are interrupted by the sound of police sirens, even though sirens sounded
bad. Not real.
I don't know.
When Guillermo's wife, like after they've split up, she sees him because he still has visitation rights, and he's wearing his wedding ring. And she goes, "Why are you still wearing that?" He says, "I can't get it off." And she goes, "Oh, so just like me then, huh?" But
I think the worst part to me is the woman who is working, that Guillermo Diaz is working for.
Oh my, well, oh God.
Because they're also trying to be comedic with her. And it's bad.
Bless her heart. I'm sure she was trying to be helpful and said, "I can do this role for free, maybe." I don't know, but it's so bad.
Vanessa Aspillaga. Yeah, it's clear that none of these people were paid because I would assume that Verow, as a director, would be like, we need another take because this line reading is atrocious.
Then there are a couple of moments where we see Guillermo being sexual in the park. One with this guy, like the one guy they could get for all these scenes, who's riding a bike with flowers on the handlebars. And there's a moment when Guillermo ejaculates and has it like on his hands, but we don't see anything. Mm-hmm. But then they take the time to show him rubbing it off on a tree trunk, and it just no care is taken. The mother, Guillermo's mother,
Marlene Forte,
who's a beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be like this decrepit, senile old lady. It just doesn't make sense.
She just seems like an old battle axe from Hollywood's golden age, like Barbara Stanwyck in Sorry Wrong Number. Like she's just being bitchy from the bed.
Yeah, which could have been fun.
It could have been fun.
But it's just cringy. Okay, getting back to Guillermo's boss, there's a point where they go out to a nightclub and she's talking about how it's very white, like not just the color palette, but also like, I guess it's like a white people party. Mm-hmm. And they do this effect because they're clearly standing in like, maybe like someone's storage room.
Yes.
But they tried to make it look like a club by putting up white sheets and having characters painted in white makeup. And then there's this
mannequins.
And mannequins. And then there's this background effect that looks like people raging, which could have worked, but in this film looks so crazy. They're clearly not in a nightclub. It's clearly daytime.
There's only one other human that has a speaking part in
and that person, it looks like they're in like again like a storage room, not a nightclub.
And we don't even need that scene. We don't need it. If you really can't afford to do anything with that, we don't need that scene.
It is that scene though where the boss references the eyes of Laura Mars and then has this maniacal laugh.
That's in the gallery at the end.
Oh, you're right. That is the gallery. So there's a moment, the lighting is so distracting. Guillermo Diaz as this photographer is in the developing room. In every movie in history, whenever there's a scene in this room, it's always dark and it's always red. Not in this movie.
No.
It looks like they're in front of a window and some bright ass halogen lights. I don't understand why it's shot like that.
I don't understand how he's developing photographs.
There's a moment when Guillermo's in a nightclub and is narrating the scene, saying that, like talking about like gay hookups and saying that he's in this nightclub and it's that time of the night when everyone gets desperate because they have to leave and who are they going to take home? And it is fully daylight. Not only is it brightly lit, but you can see in the background that like sun is coming through the windows. I just thought the look of the film is so distracting.
And it seems like he's there all day because some of the shared dialogue with other characters, like that black man that's sitting outside the urinal, we learned that he was fired from his job. And
he's married to a woman.
Is married to a woman and who makes him deviled ham sandwiches.
He goes, would you like a sandwich? Which made me think of Bad Santa. Shout out to Cloris Leachman.
No.
Would you like a sandwich? Deviled ham. My wife made it. She makes it for me every Wednesday.
You've been sitting out here all day in the sun.
And he says that he was fired like a year ago. So every day he comes from 9 to 5 to sit at the park looking for sex.
And then he's like, I've been reading the same book every day. Haven't you noticed?
You didn't notice? Which
is a hardcover that you don't see what it is until you're close up. There's no way you could see what book he was reading if you were just looking at him. But we do, and it's over the Metamorphosis, so we have more of the Greek mythological subtexts.
Okay, the only good part of this movie, so poppers are used heavily in this film, and I think the best part and the most memorable part of this movie is at a point the killer is in bed with Guillermo's mother, and he gets her poppers, and she sniffs them like she does it every night. Like she didn't even question what this is, and then of course passes out.
Right, well, and the killer is trying to get her to do it, he like taps his nose, like, come on now.
Then when we see the mom dead, she's laying there like a dead cockroach, not unlike Cloris Leachman in Bad Santa. But this movie has no effects, so it's literally the actor trying to be still. Mm-hmm. But you can see that, this person is breathing and moving. Mm-hmm. It's just too bad that I think some adjustments could have been made to make this movie like so bad it's fun.
Well, there's a way to get at the sentiment that it's going for as well, and it can be crude and really rough around the edges. I mean, I can be very. I think as an audience, queer people can be very forgiving. It's just that none of this works.
We see Guillermo taking medication like 3 times in the film. And I wish there would have been, because of course, watching the film, if I hadn't read the premise, I would not have thought it's the 90s. So then I wouldn't have assumed it's like HIV medication. I kept saying, oh, is he taking anxiety medication? It wasn't until after we finished the film that you said it's supposed to be set in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't understand, like, is this a subtle nod to maybe him being HIV positive? And if so, if this movie is set in the 90s, why isn't that a more clear theme?
And does he have the cocktail? Is that what's going the mother, her dead body, where she's trying not to move, that just reminded me, the image in my head, I was trying to think of what it's from, the movie Freeway, when Reese Witherspoon, when Kiefer Sutherland kills her grandma, because you know that's Little Red Riding Hood at the end, and you see the grandma's body looks just like that, and it's clear, and you see this old lady's breasts. I don't know if we'll be able to find an image of that, but that is what that reminded me of.
This movie, I mean, there's no budget. This movie makes me feel like we can definitely make a movie.
Yeah.
Because I could definitely front more money than was spent on this movie. Like, when Guillermo sells his mom's house, I guess, the for sale sign is like hand painted. Y'all couldn't buy like an actual at like the Home Depot, True Hardware.
But I don't know. Is that on purpose? Is that part of its charm? But if so, it's not working.
When Guillermo, how he got sexy Bruce McCullough back from Central Park to the killer's apartment, I don't know, because Guillermo's not in fighting form, and he dismembers his body. We see him cleaning up, like he's trying to make sure there are no fingerprints or blood splatter anywhere. And then he's looking through the apartment and he finds under the killer's bed one of those Russell Stover chocolate Valentine heart boxes filled with wedding bands. Mm-hmm. So this killer clearly is killing all these married men. Again, like there are themes here that were really interesting. Like, is this killer targeting
just the nature of
these DL men?
That cruising area are probably a lot of DL men, yeah.
But all the rings in the box were all the same. Like, they clearly found some rings that, like, I don't know, Claire's, and they're going to return them after filming's done. Then the collection, the killer has a very extensive collection of VHS tapes that are all labeled the Golden Girls, which made me giggle. But of course, I assumed, oh, those must be like him recording his killings or something. And then we see Guillermo take the VHS tapes and bring them home to his new lover and dump them out. And that's it. We don't ever see, what was the point of that? There's so much random shit in here. One thing I did learn, you noticed, Guillermo has a tattoo of Impressive Instant on his shoulder. And then so doing some research, it looks like he's a huge Madonna fan. Mm-hmm. That was cool to learn.
It was, but I was pausing the film being like, does this have something to say about his character? Because Impressive Instant, that was off the music album, right?
Yeah.
So that was 2000?
I don't think that has anything to do with the character. I just think that's the actor's tattoos.
It doesn't, but then that film is that tattoo is technically anachronistic.
Oh, sure. The other thing is, I think an interesting theme is like gay men and these cruising spots and how Guillermo falls in love with this person he met there. And then they move in like seemingly immediately, which could be interesting to delve into. But this film just...
Cue lesbian jokes, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
When the art dealer sees Guillermo's photographs, which are clearly like evidence of murders, including a murder he committed, at first the art dealer, whose acting is not the best, he's like, this is filth. What were you thinking? And then he goes, I'm just kidding. I love it. Let's do a show. Wouldn't he, like, what? This is pure evidence. And then he's like, well, I need to work under a pseudonym, Blood. And then Guillermo shows up to the gallery on the night of the showing in like a gimp costume. Mm-hmm. And then his boss sees him. His eyes are fully out.
Yeah.
The boss doesn't recognize him. They've been friends since college, because that's a running joke early on in the film that she knows all this stuff about him from college.
And all his bad
Which
poetry.
I'm assuming is that maybe he was doing gay shit in college. So then when he got married, she was like, okay. Again, that could have been interesting. Then when Guillermo does the showing, he decides that he's going to switch costumes with his now lover. So now this white guy with red hair is wearing the costume. And the boss meets him again and doesn't notice that it's not the same person.
Different color eyes, less luggage under those eyes, and also very red eyebrows.
My last note is, I think I'm putting the Guillermo's boss on my worst hair list because she keeps saying she's a big deal and she's acting like a total nightmare.
Like she's Miranda Priestley.
But her hair, this actor clearly colors their own hair. There's banding, she has hot roots, and then her roots are showing she could have colored her roots for the movie, at least. They didn't have the budget to buy her like a box of Miss Clairol. I don't know. I'm being mad because I'm so mad that I wasted my time watching this movie.
It's just like clearly no rehearsal, just shoot the script, and whether or not it sticks to the script, which is by first time James Derek Dwyer, co-written by Todd Verow. I don't know. It's just egregiously inept. And for somebody that's made so many films, and yes, cheaply and guerrilla style, and et cetera, there should be some kind of skill set that's developed. And if you had plopped me in front of this without me knowing anything, I would have assumed this was a first-time filmmaker that didn't watch any other films either.
Yeah.
And to learn that Diaz, was not just producer.
He's the executive producer and producer.
So, which also said he has some level of control, I would think, over how this went. And he's not bad or inept, but I don't think he's well cast. And the voice acting that's required of these long stretches of, flowery language, they don't work.
We need to end this video. What would you give You Can't Stay Here?
Sadly, 0.5. It's not enjoyable.
I would give this film 0.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.